This is my current gaming PC, and if you've been following me for a long time, you've probably seen me build in different case with different parts. And a lot of you guys may like this build in the HYTE Y70 Touch, but personally I loved how my PC looked in the O11 Vision Compact. So today I'll be building a new PC, well technically rebuilding my current PC with a new look, and I'll be showing you step by step how you can build one too. And trust me, building a PC may look scary at first, but once you understand the order, it's basically expensive Legos. So let's build a clean gaming PC. For the PC parts, I'm using the Ryzen 9 7900X as my CPU, PowerColor RX 7900 XTX as my GPU, and for motherboard, I'm using the MSI B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. For RAM, I'm using the Corsair Vengeance 64GB DDR5 with Samsung 990 Pro 4TB SSD. For cooling, I'm using the HydroShift 2 LCDS from Lian with the Lian Uni fans inside the Lian O11 Vision Compact. To power this PC, I'm using the MSI Mac 1000W PSU and some extra accessories like the streamer cables and this 8-inch LCD screen, also from Lian. This is a high-end gaming and creator build, so it's not just made for gaming. It's also made for editing, recording, streaming, and basically anything I throw at it. The first thing I always recommend doing is preparing the motherboard outside the case. This makes everything way easier because you have more space to work with. Start by placing the motherboard on top of the box it came in. Don't build directly on the table and don't rush this part. First, we are installing the CPU. Open the CPU socket arm carefully. On the Ryzen CPU, there's a tiny gold triangle in the corner. You want to match that triangle with the triangle on the motherboard socket. Don't force it in. If it's lined up properly, the CPU should drop into place easily. Once it's in, close the bracket and lock the arm back down. That's your CPU installed. And yes, this is probably the most stressful part of the build because this tiny chip is the most important part of the setup. Next, we are installing the RAM. For most motherboards, if you are using two RAM sticks, you want to install them in slot A2 and B2. That usually means the second and fourth slot from the CPU. Open the chip, line up the notch on the RAM stick and press down evenly until it clicks into place. Don't be scared of the click. That click means it's installed properly. For this build, I'm using 64GB of DDR5 RAM, which is probably an overkill for just gaming, but really useful if you edit videos, multitask, or use heavy creative software. Now we are installing the SSD. Remove the M.2 heatsink from the motherboard, then insert the SSD at an angle. Push it down gently and secure it. Before putting the heatsink back, make sure to remove the plastic film from the thermal pad. Do not forget that tiny plastic film is one of the things that can make your SSD run hotter than it should. Put the heatsink back on. Now the motherboard is basically ready, CPU installed, RAM installed, and storage installed. Now we can move on to the case. Before installing anything, I like to strip the case down. Remove the glass panels, remove the side panels, take out any dust filters or brackets that make the build harder. The more open the case is, the easier it is to build. This is also the perfect time to plan your airflow. For a clean O11 style build, I usually like the bottom fans as intake, side fans as intake, and the AI radiator as exhaust. That gives fresh air to the GPU and helps push out hot air from the case. But the most important thing is balance. You want cool air coming in and hot air going out. Now before I install the motherboard, I like to install the power supply and pre-route the cables. This makes cable management way easier. If you install the motherboard first, you can still do it, but you have less room to work with. For this build, I'm connecting the main cables first. 24-pin motherboard cable, CPU cable, GPU cable, and SATA power for fan hubs or controllers. Once the cables are connected to the PSU, install the PSU into the case. Then start routing the cables roughly where they need to go. The 24-pin cable goes to the right side of the motherboard, the CPU power cable goes to the top left, GPU cables stay near the bottom or the side depending on your cable route, and SATA cables can stay hidden in the back of your case. This step doesn't need to look perfect yet. Right now we're just getting everything into right place. Before installing the motherboard, this is a good time to find the case cables. You'll usually have front panel connectors, USB 3.0 cable, USB-C cable, and HD audio cable. Your motherboard manual will show you exactly where each one goes. Do not guess this part, use the manual. The USB 3.0 cable is usually a big blue connector. The USB-C cable connects to the Type-C header if your motherboard supports it. HD audio usually goes down to the bottom left of the motherboard. Now we can install the motherboard. Before placing it inside, make sure the motherboard standoffs are already installed in the correct position. The standoff stops the motherboard from touching the metal case directly. Line up the motherboard with the standoffs. Once it's aligned, screw it down. Do not over tighten the screws. Now we can start plugging the main cables. Connect the 24-pin motherboard cable. Connect the CPU power cable at the top. Connect the USB, HD audio and front panel cables. Next we are installing the fans. For a clean build, take your time with the fan directions. For this build, I want fresh air coming in from the bottom and the side and hot air leaving through the radiator. When installing the fans, make sure all the cables are facing the back of the case. That way your front stays clean and the cables are hidden. If you're using a fan hub, connect all the fan cables to the hub, then connect the hub to the SATA power and the motherboard fan header. For RGB, connect the ARGB cables to the controller or the motherboard ARGB header. Make sure you don't force RGB connectors. Now it's time for the AIO. I'm using a 360mm AIO, which means I have a large radiator with 3 fans. First mount the fans to the radiator if they aren't installed. For the AIO, I'll be changing the fans to the Lian LCD fans. Make sure the fan direction matches your airflow plan. Then install the radiator into the case. For me, the Lian O11 gives a clean way to mount the AIO. So the AIO pipes are hidden. Once the radiator is mounted, we can install the pump block into the CPU. If your AIO is brand new, it might already have thermal paste applied, but if not, apply a fresh paste. A pea-sized amount in the middle is enough. I'm using a tiny spatula to spread the thermal paste. Now place the pump block on the CPU and tighten the screws evenly in a cross pattern. Don't tighten one screw fully before the other. Do a little bit on each side until it's screwed. Usually you will have a pump cable which goes to the AIO pump header or CPU fan header, radiator fans to fan hub or CPU fan header, USB cable for LCD screen or software control, and SATA power if required. Because this AIO has a display, I'll make sure the USB cable is plugged in properly. That's what allows the software to control the screen and display temperature, GIFs, wallpapers or system info. Now for the part that makes the build look expensive. The extra accessories that we add to the build gives it a clean aesthetic look, like this Lian streamer cables. These are mainly for aesthetic, but they completely change the look of the build. For the motherboard streamer, connect the 24-pin motherboard cable, and for GPU streamer, connect the GPU power cables. The Lian O11 Vision allows me to add a mini screen on top of the case, so I got myself the 8.8-inch universal screen from Lian. At this point, Lian should sponsor me, right? Now it's finally time for the GPU. Remove the correct PCI slots cover from the back of the case. Line the GPU with the top PCI slots on the motherboard. Push it until it clicks. Then screw it into the case. For heavy GPUs, I would recommend using something like this. GPU sag is real and over time it can put stress on your motherboard slot. Now connect the GPU cables. For high-end GPUs, make sure to use separate PCI cables when possible. It's cleaner, safer and better for power delivery. Once the GPU is installed, the build is basically complete. Be sure to do some cable management in the back of the case and make sure all the cables are properly connected and it's finally ready to boot up. And this is the final build. I know the HYTE Y70 Touch looked insane, but there's something about O11 Vision Compact that I keep coming back to. It looks cleaner, it shows off the parts better, and with the LCD AIO, streamer cables, RGB fans, this build has the exact look I wanted. But the biggest thing I want you to take from this video is PC building is not as complicated as it looks. If you guys follow the right order, take your time, and don't force anything, you can build something that looks clean and performs incredibly well. So if you're planning to build your first gaming PC, hopefully this video will make it a little less scary. And if you want a full part list for the PC build, I'll leave everything linked in the description. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe.